Hello, guys. So I'm going to give this a go because I tried to do it this morning and my internet wasn't having any of it. So it didn't happen. So we'll see whether this video gets done or not. But what I wanted to do was there was a whole bunch of stuff that kind of came in yesterday morning um, about kind of breaking thought down and the kind of spiritual toolkit or tool bag that we talk about with all of these different things that kind of get utilized at different stages in the journey in order to support your inquiry. So, things like the, thorns and, the understanding around the kind of mechanisms of it and, all of the other bits that have been recommended and kind of putting together a little series of videos to go into that in a bit more detail and to really enable you to discern maybe a bit easier when to use those tools and what they are and how in a really kind of clear way. So I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 videos, maybe a few more. We'll see how long they are in different stages. And the first one's going to be really clear how thought functions and how you can kind of view it to enable that inquiry and that ability to be able to observe to really strengthen. And then we're going to go into, once you've got that going and that's kind of really settled in, what next? Where do you go from there? So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I am just going to say a couple of disclaimers that I wrote down for all of the content that you're going to see on this channel and on my website and anywhere else. The first disclaimer is that these videos are all recorded and aimed at different audiences in different calls, in different meetings, at different times, in different stages of their journey, right? So you might watch one video and it will appear to contradict another. And that's because as you deepen in this journey, the perspectives change. They do not stay the same. So depending on the paradigm and the understanding that's currently kind of happening, then the message will be aimed at the next kind of part of the journey of understanding and insight for that level, that stage, that whatever inappropriate word you want to use for it, that's not the thing. So don't take any of this content as intellectual like content or truth and then just believe it. Don't take it on as a belief because it is not meant to be that. It is meant to be material to get you to question your direct experience. If you are watching these videos and taking on and agreeing with it and then believing it, it's not working. These videos are to get you to ask the questions there. Because if it's not seen to be only a belief there, thought will continue to function. It has to be seen through. It has to be imaginary. And the only thought process that can do that is the one watching this video, not the voice that is coming out of it. Okay, so that's the first disclaimer. The second one is it's really important that the integration of doing this stuff happens in life, not that it becomes a dedicated hour once or twice a week where you do that thing and the rest of life is completely and utterly dictated by thought. That's not going to get you anywhere. So these tools and techniques and tips and approaches and whatever other language you want to use in these videos is about getting you to actually start doing this stuff when you are with your friends, when you are with your kids, when you are in a row with your husband. Like that's when it really counts. That's when it's really effective, not when you're off on retreat for 3 days up a silent mountain somewhere. Because realistically, that is a phenomenal experience potentially, but you've got to be able to take it home. So that's kind of my disclaimers, although there'll probably be many others in other videos. But we'll start for now. So this video is going to be a short video about the structure of thought that you can watch again and again and again to remember it is not your true identity. Okay. And these kind of analogies are going to hopefully help you to be able to see that. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we're going to see how this goes. I don't know how this is going to work recording on my own. We'll see. But there's two analogies basically, and they work kind of hand in hand. So the first one is that you are essentially like an old school VHS player, right? And you have to excuse my drawing and you have to excuse my spelling, okay? I'm dyslexic. I haven't had anybody else go over this. So if you are commenting on this video about the spelling on this board or the terrible drawing, this video is probably not for you right from the beginning, and you might want to go elsewhere because that's really not what this is about. And we're trying to lose the judgments, not make them persist. So anyway, you are basically like a VHS player. And my little crappy drawing of, my little box in the corner there is my VHS player. And essentially, we have no tapes in us as awareness. We are completely empty internally. There's no program playing until a video cassette is put into that machine. And when the video cassette is put into that machine, it plays sounds in the form of words, and it plays images, pictures. Okay. And within the human being, the sounds are going to be thoughts, and the images are going to be what we would perceive to be memories or projections into an imaginary future. So it comes in the form of words and of pictures, exactly like a film playing. And then what we have is this amazing, huge video library of old school tapes. And on each of the labels of the tapes are written that program. Okay. And that program has its film, its story with all of its content about that particular theme, that particular story. Okay. And what happens is, created or caused by some kind of stimuli. Maybe it might be you enter a particular room, you speak to a particular person, there's a particular feeling that is associated with one of these tapes. Basically, the stimuli kicks it off and it gets put into the videotape and it begins to play. And that's when the thoughts arise and the images arise, and it mechanically begins to play one of these videotapes. And that could be any theme that we believe to be going on in our world. So our job, our parents, our kids, our marriage, a particular drama scenario that is supposedly unfolding currently, and there'll be like drama 1, 2, 3, 4, and those dramas will just be, new tapes created all the time. And what happens is when a videotape goes into the player and it begins to play, the story of it kind of has layers. It kind of has different content depending on how thick and fast that story is going. So what I've tried to do here is to explain a little bit about how each story tape is made up. So each tape, if we take as an example the recording, the tape, the story of, say, our parents, that film or that story that is played in thought in the form of words and images is made up of beliefs, of thoughts, and of feelings. Okay. And the feelings really are pretend sensations, But because they're so connected with the thoughts, we believe that the feelings and the sensations are absolutely as real as the thoughts are. Okay, but that's kind of what you feel. You get words, and then you get this kind of intense sensation in the form of an emotion or a feeling. So all of the story and the content of each of these tapes, these stories, are made up of past memories in the form of words and images, and judgments and opinions about them, and predictions, right? So you can't get a videotape, a story being created without loads of judgments and opinions, and probably some hefty predictions put in with the supposed past stuff that's gone on, right? And so basically what happens is it creates like this little kind of pretend building block, and it has its foundations, and then built upon those foundations are more layers and complexity of the story, in exactly the same way that you would get with any good movie, right? That you put into the tape player. And thought has just imagined that in exactly the same way. So basically what happens is we have at the bottom layer of this kind of house, we have the conscious stuff that is going on, that we're hypnotized by and that we're totally believing into, that's arising. And that comes in the form of the red dots, which we believe to be these feelings or these emotions, which might come as a feeling of being unloved, of being different and separate, of uncared for, as part of the story of our parents. But in reality, you can't have a feeling of being unloved, right? Because it has to come in the form of words to actually like make that a belief, a kind of feeling of a real thing, right? So without the thoughts that kick off this supposed pretend sensation, you just can't get that feeling. So holding that pretend sensation in place are the thoughts that are the main kind of text, the main story, the character lines of the film. And they come up in the form of thoughts such as, they don't love me, they didn't care, they did really bad things to me, you know, whatever they are, in the form of these judgments about these particular people named as our parents. And these thoughts are being held in place by mostly unconscious, sometimes it's conscious, but mostly unconscious beliefs. And those beliefs are actually to do with the beliefs about the self, and not in reality anything to do with the parents. So the first two kind of more conscious layers that we really listen to as awareness and buy into as our identity appear to be all about them. They don't love me, they don't care, they did horrible things, it's their fault, right? Because thought constantly wants to look to the external to create these negative sensations through fear of lack of safety. Okay, so it just constantly is pretending it's talking about the other. But hidden behind that story on the next layer, underneath the stuff that is supposedly about other people, are these beliefs about ourselves. And their beliefs such as, I'm separate and therefore need to be loved. I don't have love without someone else giving it to me. The imagined other therefore controls how I feel. So the thing that is allowing the story of the bad parents to run is actually the beliefs about the self that ultimately doesn't exist and isn't real, but is being held in place because the story is running, right? So they're interlinked in this really messy way. So if we sit down and we really see and begin to question and see the falseness of the beliefs at the unconscious level holding the story in place, the story can't stay. The story content, the thoughts and the feelings about that tape, about that story, about that theme can only arise in the form of thoughts and images if those core beliefs remain in place. So if I don't believe anymore that I'm separate and that I need to get love from elsewhere, not going to judge the parents because it doesn't matter anymore. It's the belief about the imagined self that is always holding up all of these videotape stories. And what happens is when we combat and we inquire enough into the validity of these core beliefs about the self, deep enough that as awareness, we 100% stop buying into it, none of these videotapes can run anymore because they are all based on these core beliefs about the self. Okay, so in the beginning we inquire and we're watching the conscious stuff, we're watching the thoughts arise in the form of words and images, and we're watching the supposed sensations of the feelings to see that actually both are completely mechanical. But after a while, that watching that they're just mechanical isn't enough to stop all of the videotapes from not being played anymore, because there's still those hardcore beliefs at that top, like unconscious layer that are holding them all in place. Because if I have to go and get love from elsewhere, then it's really important as to whether my parents love me or not. But if I don't have to go and get love elsewhere because it doesn't matter, because I've seen that there's no need to go and get love elsewhere because it's what I am, then how can that story about the parents run anymore? Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're constantly trying to expose these core beliefs about what is holding this story in place. And when we trace those thought chains back and we do the and what and the so what and we take it back, what we're trying to get to are these really root core beliefs, not the story stuff about the other that's riding over the top that will always try and externalize it. And what we're trying to do is internalize it enough to see what's really holding it in place. Okay, so becoming aware of all of these different videotapes in the form of themes and stories and regular content that thought mechanically plays. And don't forget, thought is totally a mechanical function. There is no control over it in any way, shape, or form. It arises of its own accord because it's been stimulated. There is nothing in control of making those thoughts arise. It's conditioned programming. The videotape is being put in the player and the sounds and the images are beginning to play. We have the choice. Do we buy into that videotape and story as if we are the main character? Or do we watch it seeing that it is a mechanical program and becoming aware of which tape is playing, what's the theme, what's the supposed emotions connected to it, what's the thought story and the narration that's part of this film, and what must be these core beliefs in place that's making this videotape play again and again and again. Okay. And the way that we can chase that back is to kind of view each tape and the content of each tape kind of like what you would with a film reel. Okay, so when I work with children, I draw trains like this and I call them thought trains. And the reason is because each thought connects to another thought that creates this story, that creates this videotape about a particular theme. Okay. And as you can see on here, what you can do is you can trace each thought. Okay. Is it an emotional thought that's talking about the way I feel? Or is it a thought form thought? Okay. It's a bit helpful in the beginning to split them into supposed emotions and supposed thoughts, but really they're just all the same thing. Like they don't love me, they don't care, a judgment or an opinion, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to draw those out and write those out in order to become really aware of what videotapes are currently playing in the form of thoughts, okay, in the form of memories and images that will always be connected to an imagined past or an imagined future. What is it saying and why is it saying that? And maybe what are those beliefs that are holding that in place? And we question their validity. We question the truth of them to the point that we see they are not true. And the minute awareness sees it's not true, that tape is ditched, right? But in order to ditch the collection and to stop it from just creating more tapes all the time, you've got to hit these core beliefs. You've got to hit the stuff that's going on at the end of the videotape holding it in place. Okay, it's like the credits, the core content, right? So the observation, the witnessing, the inquiring into these beliefs leads to detachments once it's really truly seen that this stuff is mechanically happening and programmed, and that there is no separate entity making these thoughts arise, okay, making them happen. They are happening completely on their own, uncontrollably, as a energy form in awareness. Okay, we buy into them, we identify with them as who we are, and then we suffer the imagined emotional pain and anxiety that's attached with them. All right, so this is kind of the first thing to really grasp, is the understanding and then the insight that this is being done in you. It is not what you are. Watch the tapes, get an idea of what the themes are, watch these tapes play again and again and again with the same content, with the same thoughts, in the same emotions, in the same way, and you can't help but see this is mechanical. This is not what I am. This is the same thing playing that played last week. It's the same tape. Okay, and then we begin to dig deeper. So in the next video, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff around what are the tools that we use to really dig into this deeper, and we'll give that a go. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know, and in the, when I see you guys next, and I'll see you soon. Bye.